Welcome to Understandable Insights, Information to Intelligence with Sue Gordon, the national security podcast that provides you an elemental understanding of the world as it is, not how you prefer it to be. I'm Eric, joined each week by the Honorable Sue Gordon, and together we'll break down the headlines shaping our world and ask how we should be thinking and acting as citizens and leaders across issues in intelligence, technology, and business. It's December 29th, 2025. Let's get to it. Hey, Sue, how are you?
I'm great, Eric. I am feeling very bouncy. For those of you who are going to see us on YouTube, we're very matchy today.
That's right. Hook 'em.
Yeah.
I got a Longhorn swag on.
Yeah, I got to work on just like the hook 'em and saying it like naturally.
Yeah, it'll come.
Yeah,
It'll come.
there we go. All right, my next question is New Year's coming up. Are you a resolution guy or not? Resolution, yes or no?
Yeah, I always try to set a resolution. I think more important is to reflect on the year and what your intentions are for the following year. And I think end of the year is a good time. Some people choose their birthday to look at what they want to accomplish in the next year. But for me, it's going to be to not park like an asshole. So a lot of times I pull into a parking space and I get out and I'm all crookedy or take up a big chunk of it. I'm going to be really intentional about parking in the lines.
Well, and you have a Suburban, so if
Yep. Sometimes it's the big car, sometimes it's the little car, and I get all wonky. So I'm going to be more deliberate about being a good steward of the parking space.
Wow.
How about you?
In general, I'm not a big resolution person because I'm so hyper self-critical that I'm always kind of reflecting on almost on a minute by minute basis what I need to do. You know, I do a lot of it overnight. Like if a day was great or not so great, I'll plan and I'll be resolved at what I'm going to do the next day to make it better. So I will say I have 2, maybe 3 this year though. One is to diversify my wardrobe. Today was a big start because I'm wearing I'm wearing rust so that I don't always have on blue, black, or white. So that's one, is just to be a little more interesting from an attire perspective. 2 is, and you and I will maybe talk about this later at the end, I have really been excited about what we've done with Understandable Insights this year, but I think there's more we can do. Taking these, what is this, episode 24? Taking the 24 sets of experiences we have and saying, okay, where do we want to go with this now? Because I don't think everything's so clear that there's not contribution we can make, but I think there's some interesting ways we can go. And then the third one is just a physical one, and I'm going to give myself an entire year. Since 2017, when I, in a surgical mishap, lost some function in my right leg through being really busy and then losing Jim and then getting cancer. My physicality is a super important part of my identity, and I've kind of turned into a slug. So I'm giving myself a year with the progress we've made against the cancer that I'm going to recapture significant parts of the girl of my youth over the next year.
Nice.
And be closer to the physicality that I identify with myself than just the mentality, which I think Understandable Insights has helped. So for a non-resolution person, I just made 3.
Yeah, well, those are all specific, measurable, time-bound, realistic, It's good, smart goals.
And now we have a whole bunch of people that can hold us accountable.
That's right.
Everyone is going to be able to tell whether I did what I said, but only you will know if you continue to be a parking asshole or not.
That's true. Maybe I need a Russian dash cam and then put that feed up of my crookedy parking.
Yeah, there you go. Let's get to work.
Russia floods the skies with drones and missiles. President Zelensky just takes his pitch for peace straight to Mar-a-Lago, and the next phase may hinge on security guarantees and a national referendum. The U.S. reignited the Greenland fight, naming a Join the U.S. envoy in what looks like a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Is this smart Arctic strategy or a self-inflicted crisis with a NATO ally? The administration just froze 5 offshore wind projects over radar clutter. But is this a real national security fix or a modern Don Quixote moment where we're fighting windmills and citing everything as national security?
Wow.
Russia's intensified its long-range missile and drone attacks over the past few days, repeatedly damaging energy infrastructure. ABC News, citing Ukrainian Air Force data it analyzed, said that the past week's barrages total at least 1,810 drones and missiles. This comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met President Trump at Mar-a-Lago on December 28th, with both sides signaling they're, quote, closer on a peace framework, and Zelensky emphasizing binding security guarantees. There's talk of a 15-year security peace guarantee. We're down to a 20-point peace plan, and unlike some previous meetings, Trump praised Zelensky and remained confident that peace was near. There are still some very thorny issues. The biggest unresolved issue remains the territory, especially in the Donbass, and the structure of any ceasefire and demilitarized zone. Zelensky has demonstrated a little bit of flexibility, saying he's willing to put a peace agreement up for referendum that falls under Ukraine's constitution to require any change to its national boundaries to be put up to a national vote, which is a new movement on their side. More talks are expected to continue into early January. So what do you think about these recent developments?
I think dialogue is always hopeful. I think Zelensky and Trump saying roughly the same things and not having one or the other stomp out to their own separate conference where they say
or
something
yelling
is good. A concrete peace plan is a necessary step. Security guarantees are absolutely a huge thing. And the kind of coalescing of Europe around supporting Zelensky in Ukraine helps with those security guarantees, because I'm quite confident that the U.S. isn't going to want to be holding the bag for much of it. And so I think there are good signs of progress. It's probably less about a near-term peace plan than it is resetting leverage and narrative control. So that's one, is getting everyone kind of the same language. But the real issue is there is nothing in Putin's activities that suggests that he is going to be a reliable partner in this. And just look at what he does when there's been signaling that are going to be police dialogues. He launches massive attacks. He does this every time. So forgive me if I'm not massively confident when President Trump says that he's had conversations with Putin where Putin says he can work with this. Yeah, it depends on what pieces of it he can't work with. And if he's still committed to the massive territorial pieces, I think we're going to have a hard time getting Ukraine there regardless. But good progress. Good conversation.
Yeah. Continue to talk.
To talk. And for the U.S., Europe's actions and all the work they've been doing to try and put money behind it and get some sort of aggregate view, I think helps the U.S. wanting to go into it, because this administration is not going to be willing to be the supporter of a forever war. I have a real hard time with believing that Putin is somehow going to get rid of his aspirations, remembering that if this is such a strain on him, all he has to do is back off. It's his war. It's his action. It's his aggression that is driving this. If he was really interested in pulling back, he could pull back in advance of anything else. So the fact that he doesn't do that, and just doctrinally what he says and does historically, makes me less than hopeful. But I do like the work.
Yeah, not coincidental at all
that
the surge in attacks, especially in Kyiv proper, and the volume increases around these talks, or as Zelensky announces he's going to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump and swinging through Canada.
It's messaging. For Russia, what they're saying is, don't be thinking that we're a pushover, right? We still have all this power. We can still do this. So, let's not be totally Debbie Downers on this. But what you need to see next, there are things that we need to see next in order to really have any sort of confidence that things are going to be happening. If they get an agreed to peace plan, then one of the things you have to do is you have to see battlefield activity slowing. If you get a peace plan and you don't see battlefield activity slowing, then you don't really have a path to peace.
Yep. Something that both participants can buy into, like we talked about with Israel-Gaza.
Yep.
Let's talk about another cold weather area in Greenland and the U.S. developments. We've got Denmark all fired up again. Last week, President Trump appointed Louisiana's Governor Jeff Landry as a special envoy to Greenland, after reiterating that the U.S., quote, has to have Greenland for national protection. Denmark said it would summon the U.S. ambassador for an explanation. Landry, calling it a volunteer role, has been on board from the start. On January 9th on X, he posted, President Donald J. Trump is absolutely right. We need to ensure that Greenland joins the United States. Great for them, great for us. Let's get it done. He also said he'd work with Greenland to become part of the U.S., and the administration isn't going to go in there and try to conquer anybody or take over anybody's country. They're framing this approach as talking directly with the Greenlanders about what they want and what protection opportunities they feel they lack. I thought this one had gone away, but it does kind of fit with the 2025 National Security Strategy and the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, which says the U.S. will assert and enforce hemispheric primacy by keeping the Western Hemisphere free of hostile foreign incursion or ownership of key assets, and by ensuring U.S. access to key strategic locations. Arctic security competition is definitely not going away. But Sue, what does this say about our national interest versus our relationship with NATO ally Denmark, who actually controls Greenland?
National security is important. Geography matters. With Russia's situation in the Arctic, of course you care about it, so yay, that. When in the world did it happen that in order to achieve security outcomes, we needed to own the land? I mean, look at where we've had bases. Look at how long we have had partnerships and people have spent money against it. So if we are unhappy or can imagine an advantage by using the geography, then I do it through partnership. I think this is ridiculous. It is akin to wanting Canada to be the 51st state or renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. It is this weird obsession with needing ownership and control rather than achieving outcomes in ways that are much more interesting. What are we going to do with Greenland?
Add square footage.
I'm massively anti this. If you want to have these conversations about national security, about investment by Denmark, about what the interests of Greenland are. If Greenland had this interest of wanting to be part of the United States, shouldn't they have initiated it? Just the intellectual dishonesty across the board. That on the one hand, you have an administration that says, we don't want to go in and do regime change or democratize, country X, Y, or Z, but no, we want to own Greenland for our national security. It's not going away because it fits with this administration, but there is nothing about it that has been articulated that convinces me that this is either serious or necessary. And on some level, it's offensive and embarrasses me as a U.S. citizen. But other than that, I'm pretty neutral on it.
Yeah. Just appointing a special envoy without giving them any hit. Wait, what? What are you doing?
If Greenland is central to some hole in U.S. national security, then talk about that. Where's that in the budget? Where's the prioritization? How in the world has it not been a hole? What are the indicators that we think that our adversaries are going to come trooping across the North Atlantic in longboats?
I think we should lease, not buy.
Yeah, exactly. Partner, not possess. There we go.
Let's talk about the wind projects now. The Trump administration last week paused or suspended federal leases for 5 major offshore wind projects under construction off the U.S.'s east coast, citing national security concerns that turbine blades and towers can create radar clutter that may interfere with military systems. The announcement jolted markets, and developers said the halt creates major uncertainty for projects that are already well underway. Officials said the pause is meant to give agencies time to work with developers and states on mitigation plans, while critics argue the projects have already gone through extensive federal reviews, including Department of Defense input. Not going to subject everyone here to radar theory. Turbines can still raise false alarms or reduce sensitivity in narrow slices of coverage, especially for low, slow, small objects in that direction. But because the interference is predictable, mapped, and local, it's usually something you design around rather than a fatal weakness. Operators can build clutter maps and processing rules that expect returns from those exact azimuths and range cells, and they can deweight or subtract them. Also, air defense isn't one individual radar in one direction, it's a network. I think in 2025 and 26, we are well equipped to work around that. Sue, do you think this is a 21st century Don Quixote problem? The giants are so real, we must fight the windmills?
I don't think this is a physics problem. I hardly even think it's a governance and management problem. We know how to do this. I mean, we've done it with telecommunications interference, with GPS when the advent of cellular communications. I mean, this is the idea of deconflicting participants in an environment that may cause various kinds of electromagnetic disturbances. This is not new. There's nothing new under the sun, and these windmills have been there and they're operating. I worry that there is just a kind of a platform element to it, that we don't believe in climate, we don't believe in clean energy, and now we've come up with this cool reason called national security, where I can just put a kibosh on anything and not have to explain it further because national security is national security. We're hearing that expansion of the term national security. Now, I'm guilty of it myself. I think economic security is national security. But when I say it, I'm talking about that these are real issues that matter to the resilience and the thriving of our nation that need to be addressed, and it's not just political military action. What feels like it happens with this administration labeling more and more things national security, whether that's narco-terrorism or fentanyl or wind turbines or space, or even what information can be shared in courts. What it feels like they're doing is they're using the fact that national security has always been the ultimate trump card as the way that I'm just going to play it. You don't get to know what's behind it because it's so important and so secret. And it feels like they're overusing it for that purpose to avoid transparency and dialogue by just using that moniker. So it may indeed have an issue of interfering with other national security missions, but those issues we have long known how to deal with, and so it feels like there's something else going on, is a way to get rid of a project you don't like in the name of national security that used to be sacrosanct, and now it feels like it's being used as a shield to be able to pursue whatever policy you want using that name.
Yeah, on the one hand, it's nice to have these things to talk about. If everything's identified as national security, then we have a plethora of information on this national security podcast to discuss. But I agree with you. If everything's national security and it's just getting that tag on it so you can bypass some of the scrutiny.
This is a great place for Congress if it were actually functioning in its oversight roles, because it did know how to have conversations of sensitive information and to make sure that all the elements of it. When I talk about everything being national security, what I mean is it matters to us what technologies we protect. It matters to us whether we have a reasonable digital currency. Matters to us whether our localities are resilient from a weather perspective. That's what I say when I mean national security.
Well, 2026, the bell will toll for thee, Congress. There's going to be accountability, at least in the House of Representatives, or should be, when we go to the booths in November. Do you have any predictions for the upcoming year, things you think will happen or won't happen, or some hot takes?
I have 3. Number 1 is the first big AI mishap is not going to be identified as AI. It's going to be identified as human error or something else. It will feel like it's a known problem. Our algorithms are coming along. We don't have the accountability piece worked out at all. So I think the speed at which AI is moving, the numbers of things in which it's already involved. And again, I'm an AI boomer. I mean, I think it can do amazing things. I love the idea of what combination of AI and robotics are going to be able to do for us. But I'm telling you that we are moving so fast that the algorithms are outpacing the accountability, and we're going to see an AI event, but it's not going to be called an AI event. So that's one. It's kind of related to that. Human in the loop as a phrase is going to become the new age, either public-private partnership or horrifyingly thoughts and prayers. In other words, people are going to say human in the loop, but they're not really going to do anything about it. And part of it is by the time humans are officially in the loop has already been closed. We are not doing nearly enough work on the human machinery. And it's back to almost the theme of this whole episode, which is technology moving faster than governance. And with all the AI and automated systems going on, this is going to really come and grab us in some pretty catastrophic ways. So that's two is human in the loop will be something everyone says and no one's working. And the question will be whether a human was present. We'll be able to say that, but were they there to decide or just to absorb the blame? Interesting question. And then my last one is a little cheeky, but I'm trying to be it's one of my unsaid resolutions. I think sometimes I'm too serious. By the end of 2026, the word unprecedented will quietly retire. Not because things are going to calm down, but because surprise stops being the problem. We haven't done the work on pattern recognition, and so preparedness becomes the test. And so unprecedented we just won't use it because it isn't the event. It's whether we've done the work. My theme of all three is it isn't the technology, it's the responsibility. Who decides, who delegates, and who is accountable when systems move faster than people? That's really kind of what our understandable insight lens is about, is trying to take these things that seem to be about one thing and try and illuminate what is, in one way of saying, what's really going on or what's really going to matter, and to give the signals of whether those things are happening. So those are my predictions.
Sounds like you're a little worried about his generative AI takeover and AI becoming self-aware.
Well, I did just start watching Pluribus. Is anyone watching that on Apple?
Is it good?
It's horrifying and and fascinating at the same time. There is a truth about AI, and you notice it. Anyone who uses ChatGPT, if you're nice to it, it's going to be nice to you. And it wants to make everything happy, and it wants to make it good, and it's going to tell you you're wonderful and your thinking's great. And at some point, we're becoming kind of least common denominator-y, right? And so Pluribus is about that kind of happens on a global scale, and one woman is the person who's responsible for solving this problem. It's fascinating so far. Do I put it in
All
the
right.
category of severance? I don't know, but might be worth a watch.
Yeah. Not going to hold the machine accountable.
Yeah.
Right. As the person.
Yep.
My predictions, I think we're going to see this deflation in the economy. I think this circular financing is finally going to catch up to us. I don't know there's going to be a precipice event, but I think we're due for a significant correction in the markets. And I think that's going to happen next year. I think we're going to have kinetic action in Venezuela. I don't know how big it's going to be, but I think there will be something, just too much massing of firepower and forces, and I think it'll come to a head. And I think we'll also, this time next year, still be talking about the high north. I'm going to dust off an old prediction I had early on in this series of NATO leadership. One of the cold weather hardy countries, Norway, Finland, Sweden, or maybe Denmark, stepping up and taking over some leadership, bigger role in NATO. And I think as we talk about the Arctic and the high north and that potential vulnerability, I think we'll see some new leadership there.
I like it. I like all that. How about what we're watching?
Yeah. So in the short term, I think Nigeria is a good one to keep an eye on and kind of what we're doing. The reports from Christmas Day hit some targets in the Sokoto state tied to ISIS-linked elements and the Lakurawa group. Nigeria was involved. They requested these strikes, and it's publicly pushing back on the narrative that it was to protect Christians specifically, warning that it's a multi-religious fight against terrorism. So there's Tomahawk missiles that we launched run between $2 to $3 million per missile off of this destroyer. I don't quite see the value of the target to weapons match here, but what were your thoughts on Nigeria?
Yeah, I think we ought to talk about it further. It feels I hate using this term when human lives are involved, but it does feel a little performative. In other words, the challenges in Nigeria and with what's going on in the Sahel, who the factions are, even within Nigeria, when you say Nigeria asked for it, what part, what leaders? The Christian leadership, the
Right.
Muslim this is a very super complex environment. I don't think that anyone who has looked at this region really said that it was the targeting of Christians that was the dominant factor in these actions. So it feels like it's covering up a much more complex issue. And I just want to mention that in the first Trump administration, we pulled out. It just feels like a mismatch between an action, a rationale, our history, and the complexity of the situation. It doesn't feel like it's really a counterterrorism thing. And it doesn't feel
Right.
like the on-the-ground facts support the avenging actions on Christians. So I don't know, it feels a little bit like one of those actions. It's a bit of a one-off that's used as almost a marketing tool. What I'm watching, and I think we could almost do a whole segment on this, is the brouhaha between the US and Europe over free speech and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we are banning some European tech leaders because, and there are two views on this that are really clashing. Europe's view is that, yes, it's free speech, but it isn't absolute. And the US is, we don't want Europe deciding what our tech companies can do and what they can do on their platforms, which has some reasonableness to it too. But again, this is a much bigger play. It is not, I'm not even sure where the US stands on free speech. I'm not sure where this administration stands on free speech. It's free speech if it's the speech I like, but if it's not the speech I like, that should be banned. Wasn't that a little bit what Europe is saying? So I think this is a space worth watching because, number one, there are real truths on both sides of the argument, and it has real potential to affect international movement of information and trade and everything that goes with it. So watch this space. And this is one where there really are competing views that are smashing up against each other. And the question is the resolution going to be along political dogmatic lines, or is it going to say, no, this is a reality? We are really struggling with what is supported speech on national platforms. So I think it looks like a one-off, but of the things I see, this is one that has some real legs in terms of getting into it.
What about for the show next year? Where do you think we're going to go with this?
We want to bring more guests on. We're talking about going across platforms and doing some this way and doing some on Substack Live and kind of getting some cross things there. So that's one, is just expanding who we bring to you and the perspectives that we have. We are trying to, and you heard us talk about it a lot today, make sure that what we're bringing you is kind of what we understand from our background that might be missing in the common dialogue on any issue. So we want, just continue to be focused and make sure that it's obvious why we're talking about these issues, even though you and I could talk about anything. And then the third is, I think the most exciting, and I'll let you talk about it, is trying to figure out, we live in this great town called Austin, in this great state called Texas, that is a real focus of a lot of intersection between national priorities and local priorities. We think that this construct done in a live setting, we could get some really great interactions.
Definitely looking for some live events. I think it's a good opportunity. And then also to be the user interface, right? The understandable insights, the UI for national security for folks. And as we come into an election year, really highlighting in some either special episodes or as a through line, what questions we will be asking of our politicians as we're going to the booths in Central Texas, but also nationally. And some of those conversations we think we should be having and why these big global national security issues, how they directly impact you and your local environment.
And I think the last one is, Eric, we would love it if we could even inspire and come up with ways that you, the people who listen, give us more feedback.
Yeah.
We're trying to be pretty aggressive about the positions we say. We would love it if you think we're swinging and missing or double down on what we have. And so we want the opportunity for you to be more interactive with us in an easier way so that we can make sure that we're hitting. Plus, it'll be fun. And maybe our live events will help us learn how to do that even better. Yeah, so modest goals, Eric. I think we got to end this episode because we have work to do.
All right. Well, then that's what we're watching. Thank you for joining us, and no doubt there's more to come. This country's strength isn't in its power, industry, or government, but in its people.
So remember, we're here for you. We love doing this. We love the feedback anytime we get it. We believe in America, in its people, and in this moment. And so stay with us, drive us to be good, because we're trying to do the same. Go forth, be good, and for goodness sakes, take care of one another.